today. That's ssa.gov/SSI Kids. It's real help for the children. Message produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
It's time to wake up, Beaver Valley. Hi, this is Pastor David Grove from the Church of the Redeemed of Beaver Valley. That's right, you'd better wake up a little earlier. This and every Saturday beginning at 7 a.m. Tune in to my new enlightening and spiritually challenging talk show called Wake Up, Beaver Valley. I do believe it is time to wake up and to turn our hearts back to the cross of Jesus Christ. So I invite you to wake up early this Saturday to find out more. It's Wake Up Beaver Valley Saturdays from 7 until 8 a.m. on WBVP and WMBA and the new 99.3 FM.
As a veteran, you get a lot of advice. But wisdom's harder to come by. A lot of people imagine themselves in our shoes, without understanding the weight on our shoulders. The truth is, few can understand the pressure of finding your own way after serving in the military. But few isn't none. You've got support. You can't control the chaos, but you can chart your way through it. Steady yourself. Take a breath. You're not alone. Learn more at Make the Connection.
Welcome to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney and author Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship are being provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Now let's join our show host for today's program on Beaver County Radio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney Rocco Cozza. I am your other host of the show, the minority host, the less important host, Eric McKenna. And, of course, we're joined. Come on. I'm just trying to build you up a little bit, Rocco, you know. And, of course, we're joined every Saturday by the incomparable Mr. Matt Durzik. How are you, Matt?
Good, refreshed.
I have to ask you, before we even get started today, how was the week on AM Beaver County?
It was all right. It was all right. Pretty busy. Had a few of the local mayors from around here join the show. Rochester, Beaver Falls, Aliquippa. So it was a good week. It was a good week.
So you were a little political this week.
Not really. You think that, but when it comes to local stuff, it's not so bad. It's more or less a matter of
not as volatile.
Yeah, it's more or less what's going on. It's more what's going on in the community and less, hey, look what I saw on the news. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, Rocco and I are certainly community-oriented people, but we're here every Saturday to talk to you great folks about entrepreneurship. Before I introduce my co-host here, Rocco Cozza, he is an author, he is an attorney, he's an entertainment attorney, he's a speaker. Friends, he's done a TEDx talk. He's the real deal. Pleasure to be here, Rocco, with you once again. And today we're going to enhance our discussion of entrepreneurship and talk about the concept of risk.
Great concept to talk about today. It's
risk.
Yeah, it is. We touched on it a little bit last week, but it is something that in this journey of entrepreneurship you will face from day one, and it never goes away. So this is going to be a hopefully enlightening discussion.
It will be. I think so, too. And we're laughing a little bit, but we're really not, because risk is an incredibly important components of the decision-making process to become an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Do I want to set out on my own? And we're going to talk about some elements of risk, and maybe we have some crib notes here. We do. We came prepared. We're not winging it. This isn't the old Eric McKenna show on here where I would just walk in off the street and just start talking about it. We're really prepared, friends. And I see what Rocco does. He's a good influence.
Yeah, we have paper.
There's paper here. It actually came out of our printer. But the idea, obviously, is to, what this show is about, is to talk about entrepreneurship in many facets, but really kind of key on the decision-making process on whether or not entrepreneurship would be for you. And today we really wanted to, it might take two shows. We don't know. We're just going to wing this. Right?
Yeah.
We're just going to wing this. But the concept of risk, and it was funny, I was talking with Rocco over this past week about what we were going to do, and we talked about risk, and I had these bullet points, and I was so proud of myself for all my, my reflection and my research, and I had all my notes, and I had this presentation to share with him, and we did it, and he said, yeah, but we need to talk about your tolerance level of just the concept of risk in general, because if you don't have that figured out, the rest of that stuff doesn't matter.
Well, right. That was not a shot at the work you put into this.
No, I didn't take it that way.
Okay.
It was so profound.
Let's clear
it
that up.
It was so profound because I was already making the assumption, which was incorrect, that you're just jumping into this stuff.
Right.
But that concept of risk in general and one's own tolerance of it, that's where it should start, right?
Oh, 1,000%. You have to, before you do anything in life, right? Whether it's start a business, get married, have kids. I mean, you have to. Everything in life has risk, so you have to.
You don't say.
you have to understand and measure your tolerance for risk. There's all kinds of assessment. I mean, there's the DISC assessment out there, which.
And what is that for our?
So it's.
You're
putting me on the spot now.
Stumped the attorney.
It's a personality assessment, right? That it measures these different characteristics of you. So D. It's DISC, and I don't remember exactly what they stand for. All I know is so C is basically a high C means you are very risk adverse. A low C means you are a risk taker. I am a very, very extremely low C, almost to the point where I'm a careless risk taker, which makes sense in my life and the things, the choices I've made and the businesses I've gotten into. But that is one way that there's assessments out there to help you understand your tolerance for risk, or even just asking yourself the questions, how much risk can you take? If you're getting into a business and you lose everything, how would you handle that?
Yeah.
What would it feel like? What would the emotion that would come with that feel like to you? I think these are things people don't even think about sometimes. They just take the jump and realize that they didn't have the tolerance for it. And that's a very important thing you need to think through before you take that jump, in my opinion.
So how would one even begin to approach that? Because the reason I asked that question is I'm also kind of wired like you, to the point where I admit it, I can be careless with risk. That's
why we get along.
I think so. I will just start something knowing that I will figure it out as I go, and I'll be okay in the end. I learned when I was very young that generally things work out. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
So I lived my life in that way, and generally, knock on laminate here, it kind of served me okay. But I don't have that pent-up anxiety about risk, which I think most folks do, which is natural. Sure. So we're asking, to take a decision to change your life in this capacity and then examine one's own tolerance of risk. But it's hard for a lot of folks because they haven't done it before.
Well, so let's take this even a step back even further, right? So I think to even get to the point of understanding your risk tolerance, do you believe in your own abilities to solve problems? Because take from what you just said, right? You've always had the belief that you'd be able to figure it out. I'm the same way. Like, I think, well, I may not know the answer. I may not see the path clearly, but I believe in my abilities enough to solve the problem. That's something I had to get very comfortable with, my ability to solve problems. Same thing with you. That's why we have a higher risk tolerance, because of our own self-belief that we believe we know how to solve the problems and we can face the challenge as they come. I think before you even get to that determination of your risk tolerance, do you believe enough in yourself to be able to solve problems and challenges that come along the way? That may be the first step before you even take the tolerance test.
Interesting. I know that I had to develop that risk muscle, so to speak. I was not. I mean, there's a difference between being strategically okay with risk and then being careless, right? It's a fine line, but there certainly is a delineation between these two.
Oh yeah.
And I had a lot of bravado because I always considered myself a risk taker, but in reality, I realized right away that if I did not really, get it somewhat under control, then all I was really being was careless.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think, but here's the other piece to that, right? So we've both said on the air right now that we are both risk takers, right? But we also believe in our ability to solve problems. Sometimes that could make us less, in other people's minds, we may look like less of a risk taker because we know we can already solve the problem. So what is the risk, right? There's no unknown. In my mind, when I go into a situation, have I ever felt completely that I'm walking into the unknown? No. I believe in my ability to solve the problem. Same thing with you. So I've had discussions with people in the past where they've challenged my own belief that I am this huge risk taker because in their mind, because I have the ability or have that belief that I can solve the problem, what is the real risk I'm taking?
Now, it's rather philosophical.
Yeah, of course. It's Saturday morning.
No, but absolutely. And I totally understand that. And I think that the idea that that risk and carelessness gets conflated a lot.
Yeah.
It really does come to a self-reflection early on.
But how do you define carelessness? Let's start there.
I think that's quite frankly up to debate and probably unique to each individual person, right?
Well, how would you, Eric, define carelessness? I'll put you on the spot now.
I would define define carelessness as unnecessary risk attached to not having a plan.
Okay.
If I don't plan and I just, it's like it would be the equivalent of, and I'm not a sports gambler, but I'll use this analogy. So let's say I went to a casino or I opened up a sportsbook app and I saw a slate of NHL games, and I know that I like the uniforms of this one team, so I want to take them tonight.
Okay.
That to me would be impulsive and careless. Now, if I spent a couple hours looking at past games, I did some quote-unquote research, and I plotted it out, and I said, hey, that's worth my money. I think the probability looks pretty good. That would not be careless. That would be a good use of my understanding of risk within the context of what I'm doing. But if I'm just betting the team because I like their color of their uniforms, that would be careless. I know it's an elementary way of looking at it, but that's my delineation between the two.
But let me challenge that for a minute, because in either one of those situations, you have no determination on the outcome.
That is correct.
Right? So think of, so to me, like my
slap shot is bad.
Well, so I would equate, so I would take your example to me, and I like to gamble too, right? But gambling's careless. I have no outcome. I have no outside of like cards or making certain decisions. But take sports betting. Sports betting to me is the most careless thing you can do. It's fun. I do it, but I have no ability to determine the outcome. That to me is a careless risk.
Okay, I can get
that. That's how I view care. If I have some ability to determine the outcome, I don't think it's careless. It's just there's an element of the risk involved. In sports betting, where I can bet $10 on a team or $100 on a team, I may think I did all the research, know everything. Doesn't matter. I still have no way to determine the outcome. I have no say in that. That is completely left to chance. To me, that's careless.
It can be, yeah, and I definitely get it. And wouldn't you agree that definition of careless versus controlled risk, right, it's got to be different for everybody?
Of course,
we're going to look at it a little bit differently too. But
absolutely,
yeah. But the idea of entrepreneurship and the exciting part of entrepreneurship in often cases is you can bet on an outcome, but ultimately you get to bet on yourself.
Right.
That's the differentiator.
Well, and that's why I don't think entrepreneurship is careless. I think it may be more risky in certain situations or with certain people, but because if you take that journey, you always have a play in the outcome. It's not careless. It's just, what are you able to tolerate? And what skill set do you have to alter the outcome or determine the outcome? That's why I look at, the sports betting example. That to me is just, I have no say in what's going to happen. I'm just betting on what I think, what history may have indicated, what research may have told me. None of that matters.
So if one decides to open up a car wash and they're betting on themselves to open this car wash, and they do all their research and they say, well, there's this many cars in this area. The nearest competitor is this distance away and this kind of traffic. They get all that statistical data there visible to them.
Sure.
In the end, aren't they still kind of somewhat betting, and there's an element of of chance that's beyond their control for that to happen?
How do you control people to come to your car wash? Better service, better prices.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things you can control. If I have a competitor down the street that has a car wash that washes cars for $10, I can get those people to come to my car wash by providing the same service at $9.
Very true.
That's how I have a determination of the outcome.
Very true. Yeah, and so you're saying that even though there's always an element of uncertainty,
Absolutely,
unknown,
yes.
you can, as an entrepreneur, mitigate that and do your best to provide the research to yourself.
Correct.
To make the best decisions possible, to put the odds extremely in your favor through hard work and diligence and a little bit of foresight.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Absolutely.
Somewhat like that. Friends, to join us today, any questions on entrepreneurship and especially any ideas or thoughts on risk in entrepreneurship, it's 724-843-1888 and 724-774-1888. Of course, the two most powerful numbers in all of Beaver County. As Matt's over there rolling his eyes, he's like, here we go again.
I was just thinking to myself, they're so powerful, you actually stopped there for a second. I was like, does he not remember the other one?
I did. The second number gave me a little bit of trouble in the middle, but I recovered quickly.
Yeah,
Until
Good thing they're written down.
Until he just outed
That's
me.
true. They're also written down.
Just outed me on the air. Thanks, Matt.
Of course.
This is why he's
As
here,
always.
friends. This is why he's here. But we have 7 bullet points here in part of our discussions today about risk. But again, I encourage anyone who's interested or has any questions or ideas. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and the great thing about this, Rocco, is everybody's journey is different.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just two people's opinions.
Oh, 100%. But I'm just still fascinated about that inner turmoil that a lot of folks have. I went through it too. That, do I do this?
Yeah.
And where is it going to go? And am I going to make it? And all that uncertainty. Because yes, I'm a kind of careless / risk taker, but I'd be lying if I didn't have that apprehension. Little bits of it,
Everybody does.
Right.
If you didn't have the apprehension, you're not thinking through it deep enough. When I left corporate America to start my law firm, that was a huge risk. I just walked away from salary, benefits, supporting
And
the
some
family.
folks in your sphere
Thought
that was careless.
I lost my mind. Why would you do that? But to me, I had already calculated the outcome. I knew I was willing to bet on myself. Looking back now, I wish I would have done it 5 years sooner.
Right.
But that was a huge risk at that point in time. There was so much uncertainty. But it's part of the process. It's part of that journey, and I think it's something that there was a lot of inner turmoil. I didn't, I remember when I came home and told my wife I was resigning. It was just, there was turmoil, and then I thought I was going to have,
there was turmoil.
Well, no, she was completely fine with it. She was absolutely on board, trusted me completely. But even when I went in and actually resigned, I thought there was going to be this cinematic moment, walking out. It was
nothing.
Oh no. It was just, I didn't know what to do. It's okay, I thought that was going to have this huge feeling of relief. I just kind of walked back to my office and played out the last 2 weeks, and then I was like, I got to figure this out. And it was the first 6 months to a year was the scariest time because it was completely uncertain. I went from having a consistent and steady paycheck twice a month and health benefits and everything else involved to now every first of the month, the clocks or the counter starts at 0.
Yes, and we call that in radio a great transition because our first bullet point actually is about abandoning the steady paycheck.
See, perfect transition.
Yes, perfect transition. Talk about that paycheck fear because I think that's number one in my list for my selfish reasons because I think I generally feel that is the biggest apprehension for folks coming from from a quote unquote 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But that apprehension of losing that quote unquote steady paycheck, that certainty, the comfort level that comes with that.
Yeah.
Would you not agree that's probably near the top of most folks' lists?
If not the top of everybody's list. Because think about it, you're so I know, I'll use myself as an example. I got paid on the 15th and the 30th. So I knew twice a month I got paid. I knew I paid my mortgage on the 1st. I paid my student loans on the 15th. I kind of had a system. I was used to things happening a certain way. I was used to being able to go to the doctor and just having a copay, not have to worry about anything. Then all of a sudden, I walk away and it's it's the 15th. There's not a deposit in that account. So it was a different, it was a mentality shift. Like I had to make a huge mental shift to be okay with it. Now I planned for it, right? And I had some money put aside to kind of, get through the rough waters, but still, I mean, that gave me the most apprehension leaving that paycheck because it was my hedge.
Right.
I was still able to do other entrepreneurial things when I was still working in corporate America, but that paycheck was my hedge against risk.
No question. No question. And I think probably the one aspect of a lot of impulsive entrepreneurs is this number one tenet right here, abandoning this steady paycheck. I don't know if that's properly vetted out.
No, I didn't vet it out. I mean, let's
by
just be
most
honest.
folks. By most folks.
Well, yeah, because I remember in my head thinking, okay, this is what I bring home. This is what I make. This is what I need to make every month. I wasn't calculating everything else that goes into what I was planning on doing. So I realized that to make that.
They call that overhead.
Right. And I didn't have a lot at first, right? But I wasn't thinking, okay, I need to add 40% to that number. And I was just thinking, okay, if I make that and bring that same amount of lifestyle stays the same, nothing changes. That kind of smacked me right in the face really quickly. That's something people need to think through.
Friends, you're listening to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney Rocco Cozza and podcaster and realtor Eric McKenna. That would be me. And of course, Matt Durzik joining us and keeping us legal over here, doing the right things on this crazy set that we're on. But thank you so much for joining us and making us a small part of your Saturday. You're listening to Beaver County Radio, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, and streaming live always on beavercountyradio.com. We'll be right back.
You can catch all the action of Pittsburgh Penguins hockey right here on Beaver County Radio.
Slides in left side, Crosby across Russ, backdoor feed, they score! It's poked in by Jake Gensel at the far post, and it's a PPG for PGH. 2-1 the score.
Pittsburgh Penguins hockey on Beaver County Radio is brought to you by Moon Township Ford, St. Barnabas, Friendly Federal Credit Union, and the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority.
Colorectal cancer doesn't stop for COVID-19. Hello, I'm Dr. Cecilia Brewington. If you are age 45 or older, it's time to return to care and get tested. The government requires insurance companies to cover not only colonoscopy, but a range of tests, including virtual colonoscopy and other less invasive exams. Talk to your doctor about your options today. For more information on virtual colonoscopy, visit radiologyinfo.org.
This year, the Easter Parade goes to the Green Garden Plaza, and all that is needed is you. That's right, get ready for your Easter best by shopping at the Aliquippa Giant Eagle. You'll feel as popular as the Easter Bunny yourself when you prepare this year's feast with specials like these. Giant Eagle whole semi-boneless hams are priced at just $1.29 a pound when you use your Advantage card. Fresh asparagus is on sale now for just 99 cents per pound. Even though the rabbit might be the symbol of Easter, fish is still a favorite too. Boneless Atlantic salmon is just $11.99 a pound, wild-caught fully cooked snow crab clusters are just $17.99 a pound, and large cocktail shrimp are just $8.99 per pound. All prices good through Easter Sunday, when Aliquippa Giant Eagle will be open from 7 until 3. Curbside pickup, full beer and wine selection, and an in-store fresh bakery make Aliquippa Giant Eagle the first stop when you go hopping down the Bunny Trail this Easter season.
It's radio that's apart from the ordinary and powered by St. Barnabas. 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA.
All right, we're back. The Entrepreneur Life with Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Matt Durzik holding down the fort. We're talking about risk in regards to entrepreneurship, and the first tenet, I say it's one of the first ideas to certainly think about. You can make up your own list of importance, friends, but abandoning a steady paycheck. And Rocco has been lamenting about the uncertainty in his life of abandoning that. He's an attorney, mind you. These are professionals. They get paid pretty well. So, that must have been a pretty important decision.
Yeah.
You had a family and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, wife, 3 kids, house, mortgage, student
And
loans.
you were already an attorney for a period of time?
Yeah, I had already been when I left, it was 2018, so I'd been practicing 15 years.
Wow.
And, I had started my practice kind of when I was still in corporate, like as a part-time gig to help out other entrepreneurs. But I got to the point where it's like I had to do it. Like I had to make the jump. The company I was working for wasn't going in the direction I thought it was. They started getting rid of a bunch of executives. It just didn't make sense anymore.
Right.
But, I thought through the paycheck thing. I don't think I thought through it as deep as I should have.
Okay.
Because again, there was like we talked about before the break, there's that additional 30, 40% you're not thinking about, right? I just knew, okay, if I make X, if I bring in X every month, I'll be good. Same, it's easy. Like that was my brain. It was like, oh, this will be easy. Just do that and everything's good.
It'll be easy.
That's not the case. I mean, because again, there's just other things that pop up.
Right.
Taxes. Got to pay those.
And you're taxed a little
forgot
different.
about that.
You're taxed a little differently.
Very different. Health benefits. That's really expensive when you have to pay for it yourself and not through a company. I mean, you went from a couple $100 to, over $1,500 a month.
And I think too, immediately the mind goes to the actual dollar value.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be sacrificing this amount of money initially until I quote unquote make it or figure it out.
Mhm.
But the other component that I think often is missed is with that potential shortfall
Mm-hmm.
comes the initial different per person,
Mhm.
but comes the additional stress.
Oh, yeah.
And then you take that stress into a new venture where you need to really have a clear mind and be creative and all that stuff. It's a little extra weight there.
Oh, I mean, I was a different person. Like I look back at who I was during that year period. I don't like the person that I look back and see because it was just the stress ate away at me. And it was, I don't talk about this very often, but it was a trying time because I'm an optimist by nature, right? I kind of look at the world from a very rose-colored lens. However, at that point in time, there was a lot of fear, a lot of stress, and it made me a different person. But I had to push through it, and I pushed through it, and it forged who I am today. And I couldn't be who I am today or be able to do what I'm doing today had I not went through that journey. But that's a very ugly journey.
It can be. It certainly can be.
Yeah. And it's something that people don't plan for. I didn't anticipate myself turning into someone different.
Well, then you finally start getting your sea legs, and then the pandemic hit. So
yeah, that's great point.
But again, but in general, that's a great point too. We can talk about it later in this program. But in regards to considering potential outside forces that you really can't predict or plan for, are you tolerant, and is that an issue? And I think the pandemic was healthy for folks because here is an example of a worldwide amount of distress that nobody saw coming. And talk about the word disruptor. The pandemic was the ultimate disruptor, right?
Absolutely.
So now I would think too there might be even more trepidation. That's a big word, like gymnasium.
I like it.
Trepidation.
One big word a show.
That's all I'm allowed, friends. I think there might be more hesitancy of doing it because, hey, we just went through a pandemic. What else can happen? Well, I don't know. Maybe there could be, the sun may fall tomorrow. I don't know. Something could happen, right? But again, understanding or even trying to understand, which you really will never do it until you do it, but trying to get your arms around the concept of losing that steady paycheck. So let's move on to number 2. And I don't know how far we'll get before we're joined by news here shortly, but we'll carry it through the break. The next one is sacrificing personal capital.
Yeah, again, another one I didn't think through so well. And that really means, like, how much money are you willing to invest in the business, right? The saying is, it takes money to make money. That is extremely true, even though I did not want to believe it at first. I just thought I can just do it, figure it out, be very lean, not really invest in myself, not invest in the business.
Shoestring budget.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It could,
depends on the industry, right?
True. Like, let me take that back. It can work in certain instances. I knew for myself that was one variable I did not plan for very well. Even though I had capital set aside to get through that time, I did not realize the extent of the capital needed.
So the element of risk is you're looking at, let's say, your nest egg, X amount of dollars. I'm throwing a number out there. You're going to start a small business. You have a $77,000 nest egg. And you're comfortable living as an employee for this great firm with friends and a great boss. And, you have this nest egg. There's a level of comfort that comes from most people knowing they have some money in the bank. When you start pulling from that, I can talk from personal experience. There's, even if you pull 5,000 out, now I only have 72,000. It's still 72,000, but now you're 5,000 short of that number. That is, if you're not comfortable with that, are you going to be comfortable taking 57,000 out of it and leaving only 20?
Well, right.
Or spending it all, heaven forbid, to start the venture.
Well,
that happens too.
And that's a good point. When I advise clients, right, when they're starting their business, and not every client, but a lot of clients will ask, what do you think, how much money do you think it's going to take to start this? And I don't ever have a number. I always tell them, figure out what the number is and add a 50%. That's a good measurement in my mind, that, hey, if you think you need 10,000 to get this started, make it 15.
Friends, on the other side of the break, we're going to continue this discussion with Rocco on sacrificing personal capital in regards to the entrepreneurial journey. You're listening to The Entrepreneur Life with Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna, and of course, Mr. Matt Durzik, every Saturday from 10:30 to 12:30 on 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA, and of course 95.7 and 99.3 FM, always streaming live at Beaver County Radio. Stay tuned for Town Hall News.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. More than 900 bodies of civilians have been discovered in the Kiev region following the pullout of Russian forces.
Kiev police say most of the civilians were shot dead amid signals they were likely simply executed. The jarring toll comes as Moscow is threatening renewed missile attacks on the capital.
That is Charles A. Ledesma reporting. Meanwhile, Bernie Bennett reports Ukrainian President Zelensky is warning the world should take seriously the threat of Russian nuclear weapons.
Zelensky's message is a stark shift from comments he made last month when he said Putin's threat to use nuclear force should the West get involved in the war was, quote, a bluff. At the time, Putin had recently ordered that his nuclear forces be put on higher alert after Zelensky repeatedly called for NATO to impose a no-fly zone over the Ukraine.
That is Bernie Bennett reporting. The Biden administration this week extended the nationwide mask mandate for airplanes and public transit.
The mask requirement was set to expire on Monday, but the CDC extended it by 2 weeks. White House spokesman Jen Psaki says health officials want to study the BA2 Omicron subvariant that is now responsible for the vast majority of COVID cases in the U.S.
That is correspondent Greg Cluxton reporting. Meanwhile, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has been diagnosed with COVID-19. His office says in a tweet the governor has been experiencing mild symptoms. A 21-year-old has been arrested in connection with robbery at a Georgia gun range.
Jacob Christian Muse of College Park is charged with 3 counts of malice murder, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The shooting happened April 8th, about 50 miles from Atlanta. When Grantville officers got to Lock, Stock, and Barrel shooting range, they found the bodies of the owner and his wife, both 75, and their grandson, who was 17, shot dead. He'd been on spring break helping his grandparents at the shop. I'm Julie Walker.
More of these stories at townhall.com.
A deep spring cleaning can do wonders for your home, but updates can really take it to the next level. Renovations don't have to break the bank with Blinds.com. Blinds.com has the selection and expertise to help you find the perfect custom window treatments that make it look like your entire home got a spring makeover. They even have outdoor shades for your deck or patio to keep you cool and comfortable. Plus, Blinds.com has made the whole process easier than ever by giving you access to expert design consultants and local pros to handle installation. And no matter how many window treatments you order, installation is just one low cost. That's why Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings with over 40,000 5-star reviews. Shop Blinds.com's outdoor event right now and save up to 45% site-wide through April 19th. Go to Blinds.com now for up to 45% off site-wide. Rules and restrictions may apply.
A mysterious liver illness is affecting children in Europe and the United States. Correspondent Mike Grazia has a report on the disease and what researchers are doing to try and stop its spread.
A mysterious severe liver disease in children has the attention of health officials in several European countries and the United States. In the United Kingdom, at least 74 cases have been reported. The World Health Organization says the children came down with hepatitis or liver inflammation. In the U.S., 9 similar cases are being investigated, all in Alabama. The ages of the children affected in Alabama ranged from 1 to 6 years old, and 2 required liver transplants. Lab tests have ruled out the hepatitis type A, B, C, and E viruses that usually cause such illnesses. Officials say they're not aware of any link tied to international travel or other factors. I'm Mike Grazia.
Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. A Japanese battery technology company has agreed to build a $2 billion factory in Kentucky.
Governor Andy Beshear says the development reinforces the state's leadership in battery production. Beshear says the Envision AESC plant at Bowling Green will produce battery cells and modules to power the next generation of electric vehicles. Beshear says the project cements the Bluegrass State's leading role in the automotive industry.
That's Jeremy House reporting. The U.S. ban on seafood imports from Russia over its invasion of Ukraine was supposed to sap billions away from Vladimir Putin's war machine, but Russian-caught fish could still be entering the U.S. by way of China. Russian companies rely heavily on China to process their catch, as does the U.S. Once there, the seafood can be re-exported to the U.S. as a product of China because the country of origin labeling is not required. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We've got so much to say that we need 4 radio stations. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and our newest edition, 95.7 FM.
Doesn't a song just make you happy? It's just got the great.
I see what you're doing there.
What, the song's name Happy?
Yes, it is.
I just play it, Matt, because it brings me back to my prior stint on this station. It's a reminder of what we did prior.
It's a good way to kick things off.
I think so. Friends, The Entrepreneur Life, I am one of your 2 co-hosts, Eric McKenna, and I'm here with attorney Rocco Cozza, attorney, author, speaker, coach, all the things he does. I know. He hates when I do that, but I can't help it. I'm so honored to be here, man. This is great. We're talking today about risk in regards to the decisions that go into entrepreneurship, to start your own gig, to start your own business, to live out your dreams, to live life on your own terms, all that stuff that kind of explains starting one's own business. And we talked about the general tolerance of risk. We talked about abandoning a steady paycheck, and now we're talking about sacrificing personal capital. And I, during the break, mentioned to Rocco, I said, hey, it's one thing to look at the numbers and all that stuff and to part with a portion of your investments or maybe your pension or your 401k. Yeah. But the other component of that decision to part with that money isn't just the mechanics of the money. It's the stress that goes along with the mental stress that goes along with losing a portion of that quote unquote security, because I am no different. Most folks look at that little nest egg, regardless of how big or small it is, as, hey, this is all I got. And when I lose a portion of all I got, it's scary.
Yeah. Well, that comes into what is your tolerance for that, right? Again, another risk tolerance question. How a lot of people, that nest egg or that money they have saved for a rainy day, when you go through the experience of having to utilize those resources or that capital, it is a very hard thing to deal with, because it gives you that security, right? You build up this nest egg and you're still getting a paycheck, so you're not really you don't have to touch that nest egg. That's for an unknown time in your mind. Now that time has come. and you have to make that decision. And that is a very, at least through my experience and people I know, it's a very emotional decision.
No question.
Because you're taking off the blanket, the comfort blanket, the
taking off the comfort blanket. That is an excellent way of putting it.
I just thought about that because my daughters use blankets all the time.
Oh, right on. No, it's true.
They're comfort blankets.
So the next bullet point here kind of ties right into this. It's relying on cash flow. Now, the term cash flow, it's not uniquely to a rap video. It has nothing to do with a rap video. The concept of cash flow, was not explained even to me because you hear it, cash flow for businesses and things. But then I realized once I became an entrepreneur, cash flow, having enough cash coming in regularly from day one to make sure that the fixed bills coming in, there's money for that stuff.
Yeah.
I have to create cash flow and make sure there's cash flow from day one, not 6 months down the line when I'm starting to figure this out, but I need cash flow day one.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that in most businesses you may not see. And that's why, coming back to the second point, the personal capital is important, because you have to have something there. Because even if you're a service provider, right? If I provide a service on day one, am I getting paid on day one? Probably not. I have to invoice for that. Like, I'm a lawyer, right? So we invoice at the end of the month. So I have to manage my firm's cash flow, meaning that for the month of April, I have certain expenses that have to be paid, fixed and variable. My rent, salaries, bonuses, everything else that comes with running a law firm.
The rent.
Yeah,
electric bill,
all of that. Now,
coffee.
The money, very big expense in our office. You saw our fancy coffee maker.
Yes, I did. It's fantastic.
So think about that. So we have all these expenses in April. We're doing work for clients in April. We bill on May 1st. They don't pay till May 30th. So I've got to manage 2 months of expenses without any cash flow coming in. Now I have money coming in from the invoices in March. So I'm always a month behind. So that's what managing cash flow means, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to understand that you're not going to have money coming in day one, and how much can you afford to kind of backstop in expenses until that money comes in. And that's a very important process to manage. It's a struggle too.
Yes, it is. And I think that's another delusion that a lot of folks have going into entrepreneurship when they see that capital investment, meaning let's say they have $100,000 in the bank and they're going to part with 50 of it for this venture. Okay. Oftentimes people think about putting this money and investing this 50 in my business. I'm going to buy inventory, or I'm going to, get this education that I need, or the credentials. I'm going to pay for this, pay for something that is finite or something that is tangible that you can look at and see. Inventory. Oftentimes you're taking a good portion of this capital just to pay your bills over the first 6 months of your life, because that is your cash flow.
Yeah.
And that's something that folks need to realize. You're going to take a portion of your savings, and part of that is going to go to your day in, day out expenses to even live, let it operate the business.
Yeah, the operating expenses. I mean, absolutely right. I mean, so think about that as an entrepreneur, right? When I left, I had my family expenses, meaning running my household, mortgage, groceries, utility bills, student loans. Then I had the expenses of my business. The money coming in had to cover both. You know what I mean? When I got a paycheck, all I had to worry about was the one side of the expense, dynamic, the personal, the family expenses. Now, because the business was, I was an expense to the business. My paycheck was. When I leave that and I have to bring this revenue in, I've got to cover the expenses of the business as well as my family's expenses. And that's why managing cash flow as an entrepreneur is so important. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand it well enough. And maybe they shouldn't. You hire someone to do that for you, because once you grow in business to a certain level, it becomes too hard to manage as the entrepreneur. You need to have an
But out of the gate, though, they're probably going to do it themselves.
Absolutely. And so you got to be really good with numbers. I'm not saying really good is probably too much of a statement. You've got to know numbers well enough to manage. It's simple addition. and subtraction. And that's really it.
I think of I quote Jim Rohn a lot, as Rocco knows. He's probably tired of hearing
I love it.
Jim Rohn quotes, but Rohn used to have a little essay talk about when you started a business, there are certain things you need to do. You need to learn a little math.
Yeah.
You need to learn a little law.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a finance accountant, but you need to have a basic understanding of certain things. And I keep thinking about that. I mean, I didn't when I started.
Yeah.
I knew certain things and thought I knew the rest, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And,
dollars in minus dollars out, that's cash flow.
Important to know the difference between $1 and cents.
Well,
this I know for a fact.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to go on to this next one, take a slight right turn here. What about the idea of estimating popular interest, meaning like you can have a great plan, you see where your business is going to be positioned, not only in the market, but sometimes even physically in a community.
Sure.
You think you've got a good idea what's going on. You've done all your due diligence the best you can. And then you start and people just aren't showing up. It's hard to estimate popular interest in your venture.
Yeah, I see this all the time. And I love this point because I have people that come in all the time that maybe have the best idea in their mind, right? This is the best idea for a business. And I love when people are enthusiastic about what they're doing. The question I always ask is, what problem does it solve? Because people only pay for solutions to problems, right? I could have the best idea in the world, but if it doesn't make someone's life easier or solve someone's problem, no one's going to buy it. So that's where I think entrepreneurs go wrong. This popular interest is an extremely good point because we may think, oh, like everybody in your circle is like, yeah, it's a great idea. That's awesome. You should definitely do that. But no one's asking the question, what problem does it solve? Or what does it simplify in someone's life? Because think about the things you buy in your life, right?
What value does it add?
Right, exactly. What value does it have? If it doesn't have any to anybody, it could be the most awesome thing ever created, but no one's going to buy it because no one needs it or wants it. And that's what people underestimate.
I knew a guy once, and I'm going to talk about this little story because it really was something I learned from, but I always felt bad about it because I knew a guy who was a 9-to-5 guy.
Okay.
He was an idea man. If there ever was a non-entrepreneur idea man, this was the guy. And he came to me once. We were taking karate together, and I listened to him talk, and, nice guy. He said, I got the greatest idea for a business, and I'm going to get funding, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So in my mind, I'm like, this is like nuts. He's really thought this through. He's just crazy enough. He might do it.
Yeah.
So after about hearing about this for a couple of weeks, I actually turned to him and said, okay, so what are you going to do?
Okay.
Like, you've talked about doing all this stuff, but what are you actually going to sell? And he told me that he was making and printing these little business cards that were on a rubber band, kind of like a female's, like a hair, maybe a hair band or something, small rubber band, decorative, I guess. Like little girl's rubber band for hair, spiral.
I have daughters either all over
the
house.
With glitter and stuff.
The hair ties, you mean?
Yeah.
Hair ties.
Hair ties.
Thank you. Matt. See why this is why Matt is here. He solves problems.
Yes.
He's valuable.
He gives us words.
Yeah, he gives us words that we really need many times.
Yes.
And he explained this to me in a very elaborate presentation. I mean, it took 20 minutes to basically tell me he had business cards attached to a rubber band that he was going to then apply to waste paper baskets in offices. Because, you would keep the plastic bag wrapped around the waste paper can under desks and in break rooms. Okay. And there'd be a little business card on the outside of it that people could buy advertising on. So when people would throw stuff away, they would look down and see the ad. Now, I'm not kidding you. I will just say
this is a real story.
I will say the following. I will say now maybe this man made a lot of money and I just don't know the story.
Okay.
It's possible, but I'm going to guess it probably didn't fly.
Yeah.
Where I was taking karate was just this beautiful person owned the karate studio, and she had a family member that owned a very large company in this country. I mean, very large tech company. And this guy actually convinced her to set him up with a meeting, and he flew and presented this at this big corporation. If I said the name, you would be astounded. It's late 90s. Think about technology, computers, and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I remember it was roundly and politely rejected.
Of course.
The trash
Don't
can,
say.
the trash can label or the trash, whatever it was. There was an example where I think this gentleman spent a lot of money going in day one. And you know, he was convinced that he had a problem solved. He had a product that was viable. He believed in the vision. But an example of where it just didn't practically solve a need.
Let me stop you for a second. You said what was the problem he was solving?
Well, maybe keeping the bag from falling in on itself, or else providing advertising. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, keeping the bag from falling in, okay, but I feel like garbage bags kind of do that now.
On their own.
Advertising, I mean, that's a hard one to sell me on.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you didn't want to poo-poo it when you first heard it, but there was an example of maybe, just maybe, it wasn't thought out.
Here's the problem, though. What you just said, you don't want to poo-poo it from the beginning.
Yes.
That's the problem we have right now. People are too afraid to hurt other people's feelings. That's why this guy lost a bunch of money.
This man needed to have his feelings hurt.
Yes, you did. I'm sorry, but that is life. Like, not everything in life works out. And sometimes people need someone to tell them, hey, love the work you put into this. This is a terrible idea. I mean, we need to get back to that in this country where it's okay to hurt somebody's feelings if it gives them a benefit. I mean,
there's the value added criticism.
Hurting that guy's feelings, yeah, that would add him some value. He may have some money back.
He may have overestimated popular interest.
I would think so.
All right, friends, you're listening to The Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, and Matt Thursik every Saturday from 10:30 to 12:30. We're having a blast. We hope you are too. We'll give you the numbers on the other side. Let's little break here and have you call in and have some fun. We'll be right back.
Make Easter more delicious than ever with chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle in New Brighton. The entire Roseland Candy Castle family invites you to stop in for the area's best selection of Easter basket fillers and novelties made from the highest quality pure milk chocolate. Try their homemade, hand-decorated Easter eggs such as the mouth-watering peanut butter melt-away eggs. All 15 varieties of Easter eggs are made fresh in Roseland's Candy Kitchen. Don't forget, Roseland Candy will have their delicious chocolate-covered strawberries the 3 days before Easter. Stop by Roseland Candy Castle on the corner of 13th Street and 5th Avenue in New Brighton, or shop online and order your Easter favorites right from your desk at roselandcandy.com. Roseland Candy Castle, the sweetest place in Beaver County.
At St. Monica Catholic Academy, we believe there can be no barriers to God's blessings. We're committed to offering all students the benefits of an inspiring and authentically Catholic education, regardless of their ability to pay, where they live, what faith they follow, or any other personal circumstances. Serving students in pre-kindergarten through 8th grade with a rich and comprehensive curriculum, St. Monica Catholic Academy gives equal attention to core subjects like reading, math, science, and social studies, as well as instruction in theology, the creative and performing arts, foreign languages, health and wellness, and much more. St. Monica Catholic Academy is now accepting students in pre-kindergarten through 8th grade for daily in-person instruction beginning this fall. To find out more, phone 724-846-5955 or visit stmonicaacademy.org. St. Monica Catholic Academy, where there are no barriers to God's blessings.
Happy Easter from St. Barnabas Broadcasting.
All right, friends, we're back to The Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Thursik, and we can talk about that. That's not radio non-friendly. We'll bring that up. We have a caller?
Yes, we do.
All right.
And good morning. You're on The Entrepreneur Life.
Hey, guys, it's Dave Bishop. How you guys doing this
Diamond
morning?
Dave Bishop, Big
Doing
Man
well.
Comics and Collectibles, Swickly. When I figured if we were going to talk about risk today, there'd be a good chance we'd be hearing from Dave.
Yes, I had something to mention, back when you were talking about the capital expenditures and things that people don't think about. And one of the things I've noticed specifically in my area, is that a lot of people don't plan on spending any money on advertising and marketing to actually let people know you are there and what you do.
Or they're afraid to spend the money.
Great point.
I mean, yeah, I learned that by not doing that through one of my earlier ventures. So when I opened, my current one, that was one of the things I definitely had planned for, and it definitely paid off. I mean, I see a lot of people open up a business and they're like, "Well, no one showed up." I'm like, "Well, no one knows you're there."
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Dave. When you think about advertising, do you budget a certain % of your revenue for those expenses per year?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't even think about that. And you've got a budget, in my mind, at least 10% to start, of what you're bringing in.
That's kind of the number that we shoot for.
Yep.
And it needs to, like, the type of advertising, you need to currently be looking at what you are doing. I mean, we've done print advertising, Facebook advertising, radio, TV, all that type of stuff over the years, and you kind of need to switch it up. You can't do the same thing all the time.
Absolutely. You got to figure out what works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think today in 2022, that's the year we're in, right? 2022.
I hope so.
Yeah, so I think shame on anyone, quite frankly, that is not grasping that concept, because I see folks out that have all this free advertising available to them through social media, and there are still folks out there that won't even use that.
Yeah.
Which leaves me shaking my head constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, I can tell, I know much of Dave's journey. Our lives have paralleled a lot too. He's too humble to say it, but he owned a company, very successful company called Pittsburgh Pinball, for a long time in this town, and he was doing advertising before social media was a thing. He was doing web advertising and other things, probably not as much as he probably would have liked to, but he got it. He understood. And remember, Dave and I had a conversation about Facebook when it really started to proliferate, and I was selling guitars on Facebook for free, and I just couldn't believe it. There's all this free opportunity out there. Remember that, Dave?
Oh, yeah, and that's around the time, I opened Big Bang Comics back around 2010, and around that time, I did a huge, huge Facebook advertising thing, because back then you could do all kind of direct marketing and, all kind of things, and it was cheap. I mean, it was cheap and it worked. You weren't redirected to a bunch of stuff based on what they wanted you to be, where they wanted to point your ads at.
Yeah, and then to me, it's like it goes back to what Rocco said earlier. You need to spend some money to make some money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In advertising in this day and age, because there's so much noise out there, I mean, that's an absolute necessity. And, to your point, Dave, constantly evaluating and understanding and figuring out what works is extremely important, because what works today is not going to work tomorrow necessarily.
And it's hard to get people to buy your product or buy your service if they don't even know you exist, which sounds harsh, but that's, if you don't advertise.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially, and Dave's in retail, so that has its own level of complexity.
Yeah.
But just hanging your shingle on the side of a building does not guarantee folks are going to wander in. I mean, they may wander in out of curiosity, but are they going to find it engaging, and are they going to come back?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean,
another thing I wanted to mention too, when you were talking about, we need to get to the point again where, no one is afraid to tell someone that's a horrible idea. I think Eric has heard this story before, but back when I first opened, I had people walk in, look around and go, "Comic books, huh? You won't last this summer." Here we are 12 years later.
Yeah.
I've outlasted most of the businesses in my area now, and I've actually had a few of those people have actually come back and apologized, which I take great pleasure in.
Yeah, and that's another testament to dedication and believing in one's vision, for sure. And quite frankly, that's also a dedication to hard work. And I say this with endearment, because I say this about myself. I'm a rockhead. I know Dave is too. We're going to do what we believe in until it's successful.
Yeah.
And that's not, I never viewed that as an effort of futility. We just believe in it so much that we know it's going to work. And then finally, when it breaks through, it's something else. It's a feeling like no other.
Yeah.
And in retail especially, it's really rewarding in retail, I can assure you.
Yes.
I'm sure Dave will echo that too. But it does come back to belief. But again, back to the point, the issue of advertising. It's like, why do you think? I'll ask both of you. Why do you think people, besides the obvious money component, are people afraid to put their name, quote unquote, out there? Is there fear of that? Is there fear of maybe someone making fun of their ads? You think that plays into it sometimes?
I think it's dollars. I think
you think
people
it's
don't,
generally always money?
Yeah, I think it's always money because people don't understand. Because I mean, when we look, even when I started the firm, I didn't spend a ton in advertising. I started spending a lot more now, but I had no idea what things costed. So when I spoke to different advertisers, I was always going to the numbers like, wow, this is really expensive. This is more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But then as I learned about business and realized where I should be spending those dollars, I truly believe it purely boils down to the cost of the advertising because it's money out of your pocket that you can't maybe mentally make the connection that's going to turn into a 10x return.
Right.
It's just money out right now. You're not thinking about the money coming back in.
Dave, what was your thoughts initially when you really did it? I know you cranked up the advertisement with Big Bang Comics, I think a year in maybe, your first year.
Yep.
Did you have any of those moments where you said, wow, I cannot believe I just poured that amount of money into this? And did you have any trepidation initially? Did it take a while for to see the payback?
Well, it helped that I had gone through everything that we had done with Pittsburgh Pinball. So I was kind of aware of what the costs were. And like Rocco was saying, when you get those first couple of bills, when you're first looking at what advertising costs, it's not cheap.
No,
it's kind of an eye-opening shock. And you're like, wow, I had no idea. But, I had seen how well certain things could work. And a lot of times, we do things where we show up for events or we help out with events that, it may not be an initial payback, but I know down the road people remember things that we've done. And that really came to fruition during the pandemic. We saw people show up to help support us when we needed it. So
yeah, goodwill can never be. Rocco and I were having this conversation about sponsoring athletic teams.
Yeah.
I found it helpful in my realtor practice. Rocco has found it helpful in law practice.
Yeah.
Those are community-based things. I know Dave is always involved with all the different walks over in Swickley and all the things that is part of his community there.
Yeah.
And I know, again, I like to use this word, but other people will poo-poo that because they can't see past their nose in regards to that expenditure.
Well, and the other thing I think people need to understand is advertising and marketing are two different things. And they're two separate expenses, right?
Let's talk about that.
Well, because advertising is I'm going to get a return, right? I'm advertising a service or a product for sale that I hope someone's going to buy. Branding and marketing is I sponsor an athletic team. There's no direct correlation of I can track that this money I spent to sponsor this sports league got me this client. It's just getting the name out there to build brand awareness. And you have to spend money in both categories, not just advertising, but branding and marketing as well.
Extremely well put. Dave, let me ask you, what Rocco just said, would you not agree that the branding and the marketing part of it is not easily identifiable when you first start? Because I think most entrepreneurs equate dollar out, what dollars are coming back. And they oftentimes go into a marketing venture and disguise it as an advertising venture, and then they quit because there's no quote-unquote initial return. There's no big – when you're just starting out, it's hard to have a big picture vision.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I 100% would agree with that. But, hey, back to the business thing. I am at work, so I have to get back to work. So.
Go make some money, Dave. You're good at that.
I have to do the entrepreneur thing. I will catch
Capitalism
you guys
is
later.
boss.
Yes.
All right, buddy.
Thanks for calling in.
Thanks so much, Dave. Good guy. Diamond Dave Bishop, Big Bang Comics and Collectibles, always a big supporter of this station and my show, and he's a good guy.
I love it that he's lasted 12 years and people have come back to apologize to him for telling him it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
Again, I still think comics is a lot different than business cards tied on hairbands around garbage cans. So I think.
Well, I mean, you know, but what if that? Okay, so off. Let's just have a little fun with this.
Yeah.
Off camera during the break, I mentioned, are any ideas really bad ideas? And Matt's over there smirking and smiling. But are any ideas really bad ideas? ideas. Now, I will tell you, I've been out drinking, and I can, sometimes during the course of my life, and there are bad ideas out there. I'm not saying that there aren't any bad ideas. There is. But all that aside, ultimately, I'm sure there has been some crazy ideas that people come up with, and they've gotten laughed and ridiculed, and they worked out. And I made the comment during the break that, what about urinal cakes? Because people are advertising on urinal cakes now. I think that's brilliant. Not that I would do it, and I certainly wouldn't put my face on a urinal cake.
Yeah.
But both of these gentlemen thought it was ridiculous. And then I said, well, what about the folks that advertise above urinals in restaurants? Now, is that better? Is that viable?
I think that's different. I mean, I don't even know where to go.
That's what we do here, buddy.
I mean, look, yes, when you are in an establishment's restroom and there are advertisements on the wall above the facilities, yes, you're going to look at those, right? That's a smart place, and you
don't have anywhere else to look,
right?
Comfortably,
you have a captive audience, right? That's where you look comfortably.
Hopefully, you have an audience of one.
Of course, yes.
It goes straight down here from here, friends.
The urinal cake idea. Look, if you advertise on that, more power to you. Like I would not advertise on that because.
What about for a janitorial service? Like
that makes sense.
That might be better target marketing.
Yeah, I think, and again, that's a great point. So I think people need to understand there are certain means and modes of advertising that make sense for certain industries over others. As a lawyer, a business and entertainment lawyer, would I advertise on urinal cakes in a TGI Fridays? No, I just wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Or any restaurant. If you have a cleaning service where you clean restrooms, absolutely the right spot to advertise. Again, I think you got to understand your market, right? Again, I'm trying to keep this as
he's trying to resurface the show here.
I'm trying.
We're grasping for air.
We're trying to get back to the top of the water.
Matt has done nothing to save us over here because he's laughing too hard.
You brought yourself into this one.
We did.
Don't I always?
We did walk into this one. Yes.
Moving along from urinal cakes,
yes.
The next bullet point. Well, again, to recap that. Estimating popular interest, right? Are people going to be talking about your business, going to your business, spending money, and being a customer or / client? That is the goal. Reoccurring business. Very few business models only require a one-time purchase. Coffins, maybe, things like that. But anyways, what about the idea of trusting a key employee and the whole idea of trusting others with your vision?
Well, I think where to go with this, because I think that is extremely. So if you're a solopreneur, that may be different, right? Because you're a solopreneur, meaning you're a
solopreneur.
So a single person entrepreneur that doesn't have. That's what you are, right? Well, you have a team of people you work with now.
Yes.
But so if you are building an organization, inherent in growing an organization is certain levels of trust in people. So like I have a team of people in my office, and I trust them all implicitly. Mia, who kind of runs the operations, Matt, who's one of the first attorneys I hired. Like I trust those two implicitly. Like I trust them with my life. I trust them with the firm. I think you have to, as a leader of an organization, you have to find that trust in people. And it's hard because most entrepreneurs are control freaks, right? It's hard for me to let go of things. Like when Mia first started working for me, she had to beat me till I gave her things to do because there were just things I couldn't let go of, like just things I should not be doing, things that were not a good use of my time, but I just couldn't let go. And it wasn't because I didn't trust her. It's just, I just didn't know how to do it. And then once you kind of have that trust in a person and you start letting go of things, that is a key component to growth of an organization. But it's also a risk because you're letting go of certain things and you're trusting that person's not going to mess things up and is going to do things the way you want them to be done. And it's mental gymnastics as an entrepreneur, like getting comfortable with that.
That's a big word too.
Gymnastics isn't that big of a word, man.
That's a decent sized word. There's a little level of complexity.
There's some syllables to it.
There is. Trusting a key employee. What does this mean to me?
Yeah.
This is by far the single most difficult thing I have had in entrepreneurship. It is the single reason I don't think that I'm still in the guitar business. And I've shared this, and I'll share it again. I did not have the ability to trust other human beings with my vision, even though sometimes I didn't even have a clear vision, metaphorically. And if you can't trust folks to help you build something, you're going to be very limited. I had a decision to make years ago that I want to remain a lifestyle business, meaning a very small concern, basically run by myself, or that I want to grow something larger than myself. I would feel that I was going to grow something larger than myself, but it could never happen because I couldn't even trust a guy to come in and help me ship. I'd be coming in later after he's left and checking the labels and making sure he was doing his job right, which was insane. I couldn't even trust a shipper, a good friend of mine who I know was fantastic at it. I still couldn't trust it. How could I trust an accountant? How can I trust a business advisor?
Well,
a business attorney?
Right.
I couldn't trust anybody.
So that brings up a really good point, I think, where entrepreneurs, you have to start building that team of people around you that you can trust, right? My clients have to trust me as their lawyer, and I have to also trust them. There's a certain level of a mutual trusting relationship. Accountants, your banker, your insurance people, like those are all people as an entrepreneur, you will become, they will become part of your team. And if you don't trust those people or they don't trust you, you need to look for a new relationship, because that outside of your own employees, the team of people you surround yourself with will also be very imperative to the growth of the organization. Take, for instance, you're a realtor, right? Like, I am your client. You sold a house for me recently. I trusted you implicitly to tell me what it was worth, to list it for what you thought we could sell it for, and we sold it. If I didn't trust you, that process would have been so much more difficult. I would have made your life difficult. I would have questioned everything, but I trusted you completely, and you trusted me completely. The transaction was smooth as can be. And that's something people need to look at. Like, outside of just your employees, trust the people you work with. And if you don't trust them, ask yourself why. And is that the right relationship, or do you just not have that risk tolerance to let go of certain things and trust people?
That is such an important delineation. It isn't always about, you're still, let's say you're a small concern still, and you have not hired anyone. Do you have trust in the relationships of your vendors?
Yeah, right.
And the irony was for me, Rocco, is I had good trust with my vendors. Matter of fact, an uncannily good trust. Yet when I brought employees or contract workers on, maybe because they were really intrinsic of what I was trying to do, I just couldn't get there. Man, was that limiting. And we've talked many times. If I could do it all over again, do it completely different. You know, it's easier, friends, too, when you are in business for a period of time, or maybe not in a particular business. Let's just say you're seasoned as a business professional, meaning you're older. You're old. It's easier when you get older, I think, as a business person, to let go and to trust and let people run and do what they do best. Whereas I think a lot of younger folks want that, and maybe even the intrinsic power that goes with controlling one's own destiny, right?
Egocentrism, that's the thing. They're very egocentric.
I was trying not to use that word, but yeah, I think you're probably right.
I had to throw out the third big word of the day. So
well, you did.
But that's what I was like that when I was younger. Like, as I've gotten older, we had this discussion on the way down. Like, with age comes wisdom. And
hopefully.
I mean, but I think if you're willing to let it happen, right? Some people get in their own way. Like, you have to, like, I've learned, now at 44 years old, many things that even 2 years ago I didn't believe or even think about it. Now, like, that age and that experience has given me a level of wisdom that I just see the world differently. And I think that's inherent in being an entrepreneur, is being able to let go of those preconceived notions and those beliefs you may have had as a younger person. And as you get older, like, being able to trust people,
right? Being
able to let go of certain things, like, that's all extremely important in this journey.
The thing, too, that goes along with trust is to walk it even, to broaden the definition just a little broader.
Yeah.
What I didn't plan for, which I couldn't have, but I had a lot of success out of the gate. And most entrepreneurs don't. I was very lucky. I don't chalk it up to my skill set. I chalk it up to being very lucky. But most folks in most small businesses, quote unquote, start slow, and maybe there's a little bit of struggle there, but they come out of the gate slow. And with me, I was not prepared about dealing with initial success and the idea that, hey, if this is going to continue, you need to delegate. We have a call?
Yes, we do.
All right.
And good morning. You're on the Entrepreneur Life.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, can you hear me?
We sure
Yes.
can.
Yes, we can.
Sure can.
Hey, Rocco, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Is this Matt?
Yes, it is.
How are you, brother?
I'm good. I just take a minute to call in and tell you guys you're doing a good job.
I love it, man. Matt is
This is awesome.
a fantastic friend, client of mine. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your business, Matt?
We own a company in Bridgeville called CCR Metal Supply, and we also own another company that sells machinery called CCR Machinery.
Yeah, fantastic businesses. So I have a question for you. So we're talking about trust, and you and I have had many discussions, over the years about business in general. So was trusting your employees and people around you something you struggled with at first? Like letting go of certain things?
I right now, I would say I trust my employees more than I trust my vendors.
Yeah, understandable.
Maybe I'm lucky that way. Or maybe I'm fortunate or not the average.
Well, no, I mean, I think you have a great team of people, and I think the company you have and the culture you've built is extremely it's different, and I think it does create that level of trust. And I think that's something that I've just watched kind of your journey over the past years. I mean, you guys have grown like crazy, and your team's amazing, and it's I think trusting even your vendors, or even like I'm your lawyer, right? I mean, you've got to trust me, right? I have to trust you.
Always.
Yeah.
Matt,
I couldn't do half of without the advice and your counsel over the last 2 years, we wouldn't be where we're at today.
I appreciate
That's for
that.
sure.
I appreciate that.
Matt, why do you think that entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs, really, really struggle with putting their faith in those who are just trying to help them? Why do you think there's that struggle?
From an employee standpoint or a vendor standpoint?
Either. Let's start with employee.
I mean, I guess it goes back to the risk thing. Like, what do people want to risk?
Yeah.
How much can people afford to lose by putting their trust in whatever the amount of money they put up in the beginning into someone or something?
That's a good point.
So
it's hard to give up control in the beginning. But if you want to grow, you have to surround yourself with people that that can grow with you and that you trust. I mean, you can't do it. You can't grow without it.
No, I think you just nailed it. To me, that phrase, and everybody's heard it, right? If you can't trust, you won't grow.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's it. And you can say that to a new entrepreneur, and that'll go right over their head.
Yeah,
because they got so much else on their mind.
Yeah,
but man, that is so imperative. And to have that trust out of the gates, it's probably rare.
Yeah, well, because again, to Matt's point, it's about we have to let go of control. Because there are certain things as an entrepreneur, when you set up a company or start running a company, we think we have to do everything. We think we have to know everything. And I think the seasoned entrepreneurs, or the ones that have gained a level of wisdom, understand that they don't. I need to know enough about what's going on to know what I don't know and know who I need to bring on board.
Yeah, I was told some good advice, too, that when I started, basically I took my hobby full time, and I had a guy say to me a year in, are you running this as a hobby or as an activity or just something to do, or are you running a business? Mm-hmm. Are you running a business?
Yeah.
Then start acting like that.
Yeah.
Start treating people that way and giving them the latitude to do what they do best for you.
Absolutely.
It's a hard concept.
No, absolutely.
Early on. And then once you do it a few times, you realize how amazing it is.
Yeah, and I mean it's
coming back to the trust issue,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes, in my opinion, I feel like trust in that control thing.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to what do you kind of defer to somebody else. And with Rock, there's been a lot of times where I wasn't sure what to do, but I had the right guy to kind of bounce the idea off of it and say, okay, what do I do now? What do I do if this happens? What do I do? Whatever the situation was, we would bounce the idea off each other, and he would give me that guidance that most people just don't know, and it's a voice of reason, and says, well, maybe do this, this could happen, this couldn't happen, and you go from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I love those discussions, and I always say, you have the answer, I just help you get it out. You already know what you kind of need to do, and I just kind of help you find it, and I love those
Brock,
discussions.
there's a sign over Sandy's desk that says the answer is simple.
Yeah. I mean, that is the truth, man. And And again, that's another point to entrepreneurs, right? We overcomplicate things. Like a lot of things really are simple in this journey if you take away all the crap that's around, because we get so bogged down in all these little things when if you just zoom out a little bit, and to Matt's point, like the discussions we had and what I have with other clients, I just help them zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're in it, you're in the mix, you're dealing with the situation. You may not be able to see it from the vantage point that I can. I just zoom out a little bit and say, well, what about this? And just get you to look at it differently. And
I can remember, and this is a humbling statement to make, but I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I can remember actually being intimidated by the concept that maybe I'll have an employee or a contractor or a friend come in and give me advice that is better than what I'm doing right now. Like that actually would make more sense than what I'm doing. And I did not possess at that point in my life, friends, the humility I just didn't.
Yeah.
Because I had initial success and I thought I was everything. Look at me. Look what I did. This is like no one else is doing this. No one else could possibly do this, right? But me. Well, that mentality, that humility or the lack thereof kept me from probably getting great advice, but also probably having key employees to come in and run with this thing and maybe show me ideas I had not thought of. So it wasn't always about money with me. It was about my ego.
Yeah.
And it did not serve me well.
Ego gets in the way all the time. I mean, it's gotten my own way. I mean, that to your point, like when I first started, I didn't want to take advice from anybody else.
Right.
I thought I had it figured out. But then when you learn that there's so much out there to help, and that there's every year I get older, I learn how much I don't know. And it's just, and if you're open to learning from other people and listening and growing, the sky's the limit, in my opinion.
Matt, I really appreciate you calling in, my
Thank
friend.
you, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Have a great day.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you, too. Friends, this is The Entrepreneur Life with Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, and Matt Durzik on 1230 WBVP and 1460 Super Talk WMBA.
What did I tell you about doing that? You just had to do it once, didn't you?
95.7 FM and 99.3 FM. Streaming live always on Beaver County Radio. And we will be right back.
After we change the locks. If you are the parent or grandparent of a 4-year-old, you might already be asking yourself some questions about early childhood education. Well, listen up, because this is a very important announcement. The Western Beaver and Blackhawk school districts are participants in the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program and are now accepting applications for the upcoming school year. This completely free program for those who qualify features a full-day session where children are taught by highly qualified, certified teachers in a variety of developmentally appropriate areas, including language, literacy, math, creative arts, personal and social interactions, physical development, health and science, and social studies. Transportation is provided for Western Beaver and Blackhawk residents. This might be the answer you have been looking for. Call 724-643-9310, extension 4018, or click westernbeaver.org and download an application in the Forms tab. Western Beaver and Blackhawk school districts and Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts. Education starts here.
Hey, it's the Beaver Valley Community Concert Association proudly announcing its remaining 2021-2022 season. Show number 5, Sons of Serendip, Thursday, April 28th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Sons of Serendip create beautiful music through the use of harp, piano, cello, and voice. Concerts held at the Beaver Falls Middle School Auditorium. For more information, contact Peggy McCullough, 724-846-3203. Please visit our website, www.bbcommunityconcert.org. Adult tickets you can purchase at the door for $20, and for student tickets, $5. That's the Beaver Valley Community Concert Association.
Now thundering through the valley on 4 powerful radio stations. It's Beaver County Radio on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA.
Still here.
They didn't lock. They didn't throw me out the window.
No, not this time.
Super Talk. Hey, that station that was the slogan for that station.
Yes, it was in the
decades
90s.
ago. Oh, 90s? Okay.
So yeah, decades ago.
Yeah, we're old.
Oh, I hate
old,
you
man.
saying that.
I know.
That's what you got.
When the 90s become like classic rock, when the 2000s become classic rock, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, when you heard this term, the oldies. You have a JD comes in and plays the oldies on this station. The oldies to me, a little deviation, right?
Yeah.
The oldies is 50s, maybe very, very, very late 40s, all the decade of the 50s, and just a tinge of the 60s. That is what I grew up with as the oldies because I hated it because my folks played it all the time. Drove me insane. My dad generally, but just in general. But now the oldies could be like 20 years ago.
80s and 90s are the oldies, man.
I don't really know. I hope. Well, anyways, isn't that something?
It is.
What is the oldie? Matt, what is the
to
oldie?
me?
What is the oldies to you?
It's weird you say that because to me the oldies is different. To me the oldies is very late 50s, most of the 60s, and maybe a little early 70s.
I would agree with that. In my mind, yes.
I have a hard time listening to Zeppelin 2 and thinking that's the oldies, but that's just me.
Well, that's classic rock. That's different.
Okay.
Trust me, we could do a whole 2 hours on that.
We might at some point. But today we're talking about entrepreneurship. That's called a transition. See,
yes, it is.
No, that's actually called a recovery.
Yeah.
So we were talking about trusting and the trust issue, and we're going to do whole shows on trust and examples of trust. I have a lot of entrepreneur friends that are just dying to share stories about trusting employees and how important it is and how it's so limiting when they did not.
Mm-hmm.
But how about this? What about crucial deadlines and incorporating crucial deadlines into not just your workflow, not just your business life, but your entire life, your lifestyle as an entrepreneur, running by deadline and the importance of that, because ultimately in this business, you're holding yourself accountable as opposed to being an employee in most instances.
Yeah.
So crucial deadlines and adhering to them.
Well, I think you have to build those in because if you don't, like you said, you're only accountable to yourself now, right? When you work for someone else, you're accountable to them and the deadlines that they set, be it arbitrary or not. When you're an entrepreneur kind of going out on your own, if you don't have deadlines, when will things get done? When they get done. If you set a deadline, they'll get done by the deadline. But
or they won't.
Well, here's what I would say. If you're going to set deadlines, what is the penalty that you put on yourself if you don't hit them? That's where I think people go wrong. And I think you have to really think through that, because if I set a deadline for myself and I don't achieve it and there's no consequence to it, what's the point of the deadline?
That's a good point.
And I think people need to build consequences. They have to commit it to someone else. Hey, I will send, and that's what I try and do. Like if most of the things we do in my practice, other than court type things or litigation type things, there's really no hard deadlines, right? There's no it has to be done by this date. There are deadlines we set for ourselves or with opposing counsel on certain negotiations. I try and tell myself, if I tell my client, I will have this to you by end of day on Friday, if I don't do that, I've broken the trust. That's the penalty. So I have to commit that to someone else. If I just told myself, I'm going to try and get this done by end of day Friday, what's the penalty if I don't? There's really nothing. I'm breaking my own promise to myself, which that's a whole other discussion we can get into.
Yeah.
But I think deadlines are extremely important in business and as an entrepreneur.
So to expand that a little bit too, it's almost, when you're in business for yourself, you now have the responsibility to put a system and mechanisms in place to create accountability for your own deadlines.
Absolutely.
Which is generally something you would not have to do in an organization as an employee. And that's a big personal ask, and it's a work change that a lot of folks, I know I struggled with.
Yeah.
And that's part of this journey that really is going to hit you day one.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with it to this day. I mean, that's why I if I know something needs a deadline put on it, I commit it to someone else, meaning a client, or tell someone in my office, I'll have this to you by then. So then I know the penalty is I've broken some level of trust with that person. And that's kind of but I still struggle with it. I'm going to the office this afternoon after we leave here because there's a million things I'm just behind on because we've just been so busy. There's nothing that have deadlines on them. There are deadlines I've set for myself. I know I need to get these things done by Monday morning. Mm-hmm. And that's dead. But I had to build those deadlines into myself, or I wouldn't get this stuff done. I would prioritize something else over it.
It is a different mindset for sure. And for those entrepreneurs that are coming from, let's say, a white collar office job in a mid-sized to larger company,
mm-hmm.
And you're making that decision, you probably already have a multitude of tasks that you're responsible for as an employee.
Yeah.
Administrative tasks as
mm-hmm.
part of your workflow. So how do you, in one regard, it's a great skill set to have
mm-hmm.
because you should be able to hopefully transition those types of mechanisms to now work for you.
Yeah.
But for those who are coming from, and this is a very good part of the conversation, Rocco, when you are coming from, let's say you are working as a ramp employee at an airline where you're basically not doing office work, you're doing physical labor, and you've decided to open up a retail store, which is going to involve a lot of everything that's
mm-hmm.
retail. It's a total shift it's a paradigm shift in who you are and what you do every day.
Absolutely.
You need so much realignment personally. It's tough, and that's a whole nother discussion, which we have plenty of weeks to do that. We will do that, touch on it, but it's a big paradigm shift for someone when their lifestyle actually takes a change because of the physical nature of what they're going to go into.
Absolutely.
All right, friends, that music means... Where are we? Going to news. Man. All right. Stay tuned for Town Hall News. This is The Entrepreneur Life with Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna on Beaver County Radio, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA and 95.7 and 99.3 FM, Beaver County Radio. We'll be back.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. The governor of the Lviv region in western Ukraine says there have been airstrikes in the region.
Maxim Kozaitsky says on the Telegram messaging app that Russian Su-35 aircraft took off from the Baranovich airfield in Belarus and carried out missile strikes in Lviv, adding Ukraine's air defense system subsequently shot down 4 cruise missiles, but didn't offer any details about possible casualties or damage. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Bernie Bennett, meanwhile, reports Russia sent a formal letter warning of consequences over U.S. and NATO weapon shipments to Ukraine.
The letter added that the U.S. has flouted the rules governing the transfer of weapons to conflict zones. According to the letter dated Tuesday, Russia accused NATO of impending early peace negotiation with Ukraine, quote, in order to continue the bloodshed.
And that is Bernie Bennett reporting. A plan to undercut Russian imports may have missed the mark.
A U.S. ban on seafood imports from Russia over its invasion of Ukraine was supposed to sap billions of dollars from Vladimir Putin's war machine, but shortcomings in import regulations mean Russian-caught pollock, salmon, and crab are likely to enter the U.S. anyway, by way of the country vital to seafood supply chains across the world, China.
And that is Rhonda Roxburgh reporting. Israel has launched a wave of arrest raids across the West Bank, igniting clashes with Palestinian militants. Correspondent Joseph Krause says much of the action has taken place in the Jenin refugee camp.
In recent weeks, with the latest tensions, Israel has been carrying out near-daily raids inside the camp. And a lot of the attackers and people who Israel says were involved in violence have come from Jenin and the surrounding area.
At least 25 Palestinians have been killed, many of whom had carried out attacks against Israelis. Palestinian assailants have killed at least 14 Israelis in a series of attacks in recent weeks. More from townhall.com.
This is an important notice to consumers facing $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt. You're not required to pay it all back because there are special programs now in effect that will significantly reduce the amount you will owe if you qualify. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. These programs, which the credit card companies like to keep secret, exist to aid American consumers struggling with overwhelming credit card debt by offering tremendous savings and real debt relief. Accredited Debt Relief has established a special hotline for you to call and learn what savings you qualify for. They've helped qualify consumers with over $1 billion in debt and are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. So don't wait. Get the relief you need during these hard economic times. For this free information, call the Accredited Debt Relief Hotline now. Call 800-786-2300. 800-786-2300. That's 800-786-2300.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott repealed his immigration order that led to a backup of commercial trucks at the U.S.-Mexico border.
Abbott wanted to cut down on the flow of migrants and drugs.
The Texas Department of Public Safety will continue to thoroughly inspect vehicles entering into the United States from every Mexican state except Nuevo Leon.
But tensions forced the repeal. Some truckers reported waiting more than 30 hours to cross. Others blocked one of the world's busiest trade bridges in protest. Governor Abbott is up for re-election in November. His opponent, Democrat Beto O'Rourke, says this was completely unnecessary.
And did absolutely nothing to improve the security and safety of El Paso, of Laredo, of FAR, of any one of our border communities, of the state of Texas.
Pressure was building on the governor to retreat as gridlock on the border got worse.
Breaking news at townhall.com. Twitter says its board of directors has adopted a poison pill defense in response to Tesla CEO Elon Musk's proposal to buy the company and take it private. We get more from correspondent Ben Thomas.
It's formally called a limited duration shareholders rights plan. Twitter says the aim is to enable its investors to realize the full value of their investment by reducing the likelihood that any one person can gain control of the company without either paying the shareholders a premium or giving the board more time. Twitter's plan would take effect if Musk's roughly 9% stake grows to 15% or more. Even then, Musk could still take over the company with a proxy fight, voting out the current directors. Twitter notes the plan does not prevent the board from engaging with parties or accepting an acquisition proposal if it's in the company's best interests. I'm Ben Thomas.
More on these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
Happy Easter from St. Barnabas Broadcasting.
All right, we're back. Last segment. You want to chime in? The Entrepreneur Life?
Yeah.
724-843-1888 and 724-774-1888. Two most powerful numbers in Beaver County.
I was waiting for it.
I like that phrase, man.
I was waiting
think
for it.
I might have coined that phrase.
I'm sure you did.
We can trademark it.
Trademark it and sell it back to the station. There's an entrepreneur, man. The last one, Rocco, is I want to talk about this last one, but I also have some commentary that I want your opinion on before we close today, too, about entrepreneurship in general.
Sure.
But this last tenet or this last bullet point I have here is the concept of, consider the amount of time and any potential cost to your health that you're going to either need to provide or sacrifice for your business. And I don't think that often is taken into full consideration when someone starts.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is like having a child 24/7, 365. Though
an unruly child at times.
Very unruly. But to your point, I think what individuals need to understand is it's not when you go from being employed by a company, right? You can, in most instances, when you leave for the day, you can kind of turn it off. And yeah, you might be thinking about things, but you pick it back up the next day. Entrepreneurship, it never turns off. You have to force yourself to unplug. And even still, it's very difficult to do. When, I don't ever have the luxury of being able to just not think about my business. Because I'm responsible for people. I'm responsible for the people that work for me. I take responsibility for their families because they're relying on them, who are relying on me.
It's heavy.
It is a heavy burden, but it's also a burden you choose, right? I chose that. And, that's the path I've chosen in life, and I'm okay carrying that burden, but it is a burden, and I don't think people understand. And even if you work in an entrepreneurial organization, I don't think people that are in it understand what the person at the top has to go through to make everything run. And it is a toll on your time, on your health. Like, I know myself, like, I'm not in any way the shape I used to be in before I started this journey, just because I don't have the time to put into my health. I try as hard as I can to stay as healthy as I possibly can because I have an organization to run. But being in the shape I was 5-6 years ago, it's almost impossible because there's trade-offs. I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, there's no question. And I will bring this ugly truth out as well, too, about entrepreneurship, which ties into this discussion of personal time and health. A wise man told me years ago, one of the most delusional statements he ever thought was created was the idea that you can have it all. Nobody has it all. Everything that we want to do, yet lust for, yearn for, everything in life, and again, this is his idea, not mine. His point was everything has a cost to it.
Yes.
And because there's a cost, you can't have it all.
No.
There's going to be a cost for everything good that you bring into your life, and you do, something else is going to suffer. It's not a right or wrong or good or bad equation. It's just an equation.
It's a trade-off.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off. And I think there's a delusion out there that you hear too much, and it drives me nuts that I always, you read it with all the motivational posters, and look, and I love motivational stuff, most of it. But the stuff I don't like is the delusional stuff. And when people say you can have it all, the perfect family life, the perfect business life, and there's Jane. She's got a perfect life, perfect wife, mother, fantastic business person. She has everything.
Yeah.
Or there's Bill. He runs a small business. He golfs on the weekends, spends time with his children. His wife appeared to love him. It's a great life. It's not always as it appears.
No.
And it's okay. It's not a value judgment. But the idea that everyone can have everything they want and nothing suffers, and it's not reality.
No, not at all.
And going into entrepreneurship is a sacrifice. And sometimes you're going to sacrifice things that are going to make you uncomfortable in the beginning.
Yes.
Yes.
And to your point about having it all, right? You can't. So you have to decide what is most important to you. To me, my entrepreneur journey, the most important thing to me was freedom.
Right. Amen.
So that's why. So yes, there are trade-offs I had to make to obtain the level of freedom I have today. And nothing's perfect. Like, my life is the farthest thing from perfect. It's a train wreck most days, I always say. Just because there's so many things, there's so many moving pieces in my life. Family, kids, business, complexity. And when people are given this unrealistic expectation or notion that they can build this business and have everything, have this amazing life, and work 4 hours a day and make all this money and travel and have this, that's BS in my mind. Maybe some people have figured out that equation and can do it, but I know the most successful people in the world and the people that I've watched and tried to learn from, they work a lot more than 4 hours a day. And there's a constant sacrifice of something. My life is never balanced. And I say that very candidly. Either I'm working too much or I'm not working enough. My job is to know the guardrails, is to know how far left and right I can go without falling too far off course. That is my sole goal as an entrepreneur, to understand that. Because I know I can't have it all. I can't do everything I want to do. I can't be everything to everybody, despite what people may think. And it's understanding that and being okay with it. That's the hardest thing.
Absolutely. And again, I think delusion's a tough word, but I use it firmly because I believe that phrase is delusional. Everybody goes into entrepreneurship with the best intentions and the best expectations and hopefully some trepidation. I get it, but that idea that nothing's going to suffer, like, I can do that. I can make this work. I can make my marriage work flawlessly. I can still get all my time, maybe even more with my kids when I do this. I still can maintain those friendships that are so important to me. I still can go bowling on Thursday nights, and I can do this. Listen, some of that is probably true, and hopefully the things that are true are the most important things, the family stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, there's only 8 hours in a day, and I've been trying for decades, friends, to figure out the way to cram, to a work day. I've found it's impossible to cram more than 24 hours in a day, and I've tried. It doesn't physically work. So something has to give, and that's my argument with folks that think that everything is bliss. But Rocco, the point I wanted to make for this last 15 odd minutes that we have here about entrepreneurship in general is this is a philosophical debate, and I'm not bringing this up for political reasons.
Okay,
because I love everybody.
Sure,
but a lot of my entrepreneurial life, once in a while, you would get a lot of anti-business, anti-entrepreneurial, or anti-big business or whatever stuff thrown at you. Sometimes subtly in conversations, sometimes coming through a idiot tube called the television or radio. But there are a certain group of our population who are anti-business because there's the concept that all business folks are greedy, or there's a lust for money above everything else. I believe that all of that can be true in small segments, but when one bashes business or the creativity or the concept of starting one's own business, when there's an anti-business mindset in any capacity in society, I have to step back and really critically examine that and wonder, wow, what a misguided philosophy. Everything we enjoy in life, everything we consume, we buy, everything started with an idea. And if it wasn't created, it was manufactured, maybe from raw materials, whatever. It came out of the human endeavor. Someone taking a risk in their life in some capacity to create something and offer it to the world. The moment we stop or we discourage people from starting entrepreneurship, starting their own venture, looking at life a little bit differently, being creative, the moment we let that negativity, for whatever reason, whether it's someone thinks that any business owner is corrupt, that money is bad, whatever the reason, I don't care what the reason is. The moment it's negative, we are doing society the greatest injustice in the world. We should be encouraging entrepreneurship from everyone in some capacity.
Sure.
Creativity, thinking outside the box, because without that, we would not enjoy the lifestyle we have. And again, I'll get off my soapbox, but it drives me crazy when I hear entrepreneurship and business attacked sometimes.
Yeah. It's the education system, in my opinion. I mean, the education system was created to feed factories. And when you think about it, that's why the education system that's why school's structured the way it is. It was meant to feed factories, workers, and keep them in that mentality. And I think that is where I think some schools have altered or shifted to where they are creating these entrepreneurial programs to teach kids. Because I think it starts there, right? Like that's where the discouragement's coming. Where the education system, in my mind, I think can use some shifting or modifying or modernizing.
Yeah,
modernizing is probably the word I'm looking for. But I think that's where. And look, are there people out there that have this bent against business? Yeah, but I think it's a misguided bent. I think to your point, like everything I'm looking around this room right now, everything in here was created by someone's idea. And I think we got to remember that, like everything, the platform people are using to complain about business on was created by an entrepreneur. Like that, people are missing that point. The people that are on the news, they're employed by someone that had an idea to start a channel. And
the iPhone that we all have in our pocket, or the Android phone. I mean, it's the biggest hypocrites that complain about how much. I guess maybe you can talk about the personal aspect of money and how much somebody should earn and how much shouldn't earn, or how much somebody should make or that they shouldn't make. But that's money aside. Is it coming from does those anti-business negativity, is it coming from envy? Is it coming from misunderstanding? Is it coming from a lack of education earlier in their life about what business actually is?
All of it.
It's just really, and it always puzzled me for a long, long time. And maybe it's because I came from a family of entrepreneurs in general, but it just never made sense to me to it's almost like you're criticizing the golden goose. Right? You're trying to kill the golden goose sometimes.
Right. But to your point, I think all of those things are why. You know, we when you said about like we should be talking about what people should and shouldn't make, I don't think that should be any part of the discussion. People should make what they're worth.
I'm in alignment with you, but I'm saying these are examples of why they say they hate capitalism. And I think here's misunderstanding and it's envy.
Here's the problem. Ask them what's the alternative. See what the answer is. And no one can answer that question. When they say they hate capitalism, I've had this discussion with people. What's the alternative?
Show me a better system.
Show me a system that works better.
Yeah.
And no one can really articulate one.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm a capitalist by nature. I believe in a free market society. I believe we should encourage entrepreneurship from when children are children. Like I do that with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I try and encourage them to build something themselves. Don't wait for the world to hand you things. Go out and make what you want of yourself.
It's a philosophy. It's not.
Yes.
It's not that I believe that entrepreneurship should be taught in schools because that's going to yield more money. It might for them long term, that direction, but I think it's a philosophy. It's an independent philosophy. It teaches a level of independence to youth. If entrepreneurship and all that's involved with it on an elementary fashion could be incorporated in our education system, but it's not there.
It leads to independent thinking and creativity.
I would agree.
That's what we need more of.
I would agree. Excellent conversation. We thank all the people who have given us a little bit of their Saturday. Thank you, friends. On behalf of attorney Rocco Cozza, I am the other host of the show, podcaster, realtor Eric McKenna, and of course, Matt Durzik. We thank Matt for all he does. We had a lot of fun.
We got 10 more minutes.
I know. I'm not done.
I didn't know
talking
you were
about
just
the
wrapping
virtues of
things
this
up.
show.
That's
We're
too
not
bad.
wrapping things up. We got 10 more minutes.
I got to keep you in line.
I'm struggling with these reads, you know. I'm not good. I'm better off the cuff. Friends, the Entrepreneur Life, Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna, since I've been humbled here. We'll be right back.
Hi there. My name's Eddie Crow. I host a talk show. The talk show is called Teleforum. The talk show occurs right here every weekday from 9 to noon. Right here, well, it's AM 1230, AM 1460, FM 99.3, presented by St. Barnabas, FM 95.7, live streaming at beavercountyradio.com or the free Beaver County Radio app. Options.
Make Easter more delicious than ever with chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle in New Brighton. The entire Roseland Candy Castle family invites you to stop in for the area's best selection of Easter basket fillers and novelties made from the highest quality pure milk chocolate. Try their homemade, hand-decorated Easter eggs such as the mouth-watering peanut butter melt-away eggs. All 15 varieties of Easter eggs are made fresh in Roseland's Candy Kitchen. Don't forget, Roseland Candy will have their delicious chocolate-covered strawberries the 3 days before Easter. Stop by Roseland Candy Castle on the corner of 13th Street and 5th Avenue in New Brighton, or shop online and order your Easter favorites right from your desk at roselandcandy.com. Roseland Candy Castle, the sweetest place in Beaver County.
One source for all things Beaver County, whether it's on air at 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, on FM at 99.3, or online at beavercountyradio.com. No one informs or entertains like Beaver County Radio on multiple devices anytime, anywhere. Since 1948.
Good evening, basketball fans. This is Chuck Wilson speaking to you from Convention Hall in Philadelphia.
And getting stronger every day. beavercountyradio.com. Check out Beaver County's free online source for news, sports scores, and more. beavercountyradio.com.
Okay, back for the final segment. The Entrepreneur Life, Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durzik. Friends, I do want to close this show out, and Rocco doesn't even know this. I'm coming to him completely,
of course,
fresh here. But this concept is important to me because I had so little of it for so many years, and I've only recently embraced it. And that's the concept of humility, especially when it comes to being authentic and ultimately how it works in with the business. You know, I had a very unique journey in the musical industry business and the music business, and it really fed my ego for a long time. And my own lack of humility stifled the growth and ultimate survival of the company. Hard lesson to learn. But I have been very blessed in having a productive realtor practice, Rocco, because I have brought humility into that. And I think I just want to state, I want to get your thoughts on humility. And is there anything that somebody, an experienced veteran of business, could tell a younger person starting a business? We can say it's probably till we're blue in the face, but humility is something that you almost have to come to on your own, maybe. But it's so important in the journey because it opens your eyes wider and provides the ability for you to be enriched in so many ways by others. And maybe something in there, that nugget may change your life or change your business life, right?
I mean, and that's such a good point, because I think, again, when younger professionals, when I was a younger professional, not that I thought I knew. Many years ago. I'm feeling old, man. I'm going to be 45 this year.
When dinosaurs roamed the earth.
I'm coming to the halfway point in life this year.
It isn't all it's cracked up to be, trust me.
But I think, looking back, there were a lot of things I thought I knew, and I wasn't humble enough to take a step back and admit I don't know what I'm doing. As I've gotten older and wiser and more experienced, I do that every day. I'm completely open to other people's opinions, to other people's thoughts, to seeing a better way, to seeing a different way of doing things, and that takes humility. That takes me, look, I've built a firm, my name's on the wall for a reason. However, I still look at that as I don't know what I'm doing. And if someone could see it better or do it better or give me some advice, I'm all for it, because I'm one person. I picked a path, I execute on the path, and I've built something. However, I know that there are plenty other ways out there to do it, and there's plenty of stuff I have no idea what to do or how to do yet. And I have gotten to the point in life where I am humble enough and have enough humility to seek that out. And I think I would encourage any young entrepreneur to seek out those ahead of you, to seek out people that have done what you're trying to do, and go to them hat in hand and ask them what can they teach you, and be willing to give something to them in return, something of value, maybe your time, maybe anything, but be humble enough to know you don't know everything, and you're never going to. That's the big thing. I'll never get to a point where I wake up one day and say, I figured it all out. I'm good. No. Being humble enough to understand that is extremely important.
It is, and I think if you were to take the time to sit and reflect on so many icons of business, just take the ones that are in the media all the time, and you really did some research on these folks, you will see that while they're probably brilliant, or they're getting credit for being brilliant, if you really take a hard look at the organization, they probably have a group of key people in the journey who made that company what it was from a mechanic standpoint, right? Yes. But obviously, it's the system we have, and the face of who the company is generally gets the credit. Nothing wrong with that. They build it, they deserve it. It isn't about credit. It's about understanding how that organization became excellent, and it's those key people in the growth of that company that are driving. It's the brain trust, I like to say.
Oh my God, yeah.
And you'll never have a brain trust of any organization if you're not humble enough to realize that's what you need, and that brain trust is available to me. Case in point also, sometimes you get to be part of someone else's journey and someone else's brain trust, and there's nothing wrong if that career path works out for you. The stigma of being an employee versus an entrepreneur is not a good, bad, left or right. It's just a different definition of a work life, a work journey. That's all it is.
To your point, too, I think that is extremely important to let people know, you can't get to where you want to go alone. Like, I know where I am with our firm. I couldn't have done it without the people that have helped me do it. You know, the employees that work with me, you know, my family, my kids, my close friends, the people I bounce ideas off of, one standing next to me. But all of you have been part of the journey and have all made it what it is. I could not do it myself. I'm not smart enough or have enough brain power to do it all. And you need to bring those people in and be humble enough to understand that.
And none of us are.
And give the credit where it's due.
Absolutely. None of us have all the answers.
No.
And again, that might be, you know, this could be, we don't know. We're amateurs at this stuff. We're making it up as we go. That could be the number one thing to try to get a hold of as you start the journey of entrepreneurship is just, man, get humble and realize, walk around with a smile on your face and listen when people have ideas, even if they're about putting a gum band on a trash bag. You know, you never know. Ideas are ideas. But
I like it.
But there are people that can assist you and propel you, but you have to be open to receiving it.
Yes. And here's the thing. Being humble also means being a good human being. And we need to all understand that you can get so much farther in life, in business, in just life in general, by just being a decent human being. Actually care about other people. Actually want to see other people succeed. Actually want to treat people with kindness and respect. That gets you very far in life, but you have to do it authentically. And that's being humble enough to understand that.
And we all learned this, at least most of us anyways, when we were either in first grade or kindergarten.
Right.
You know, and I make this joke. I had the greatest kindergarten teacher in the world, Mrs. Becky Dide. If you're listening, Mrs. Dide, which you might be, I love you dearly. But all that I needed to learn to propel me in life was learned in kindergarten.
Absolutely.
And the point is, kindergarten probably taught all of us good lessons. We just need to go back once in a while and remember them.
Yes. Be kind.
Be kind, above all else. Friends, the Entrepreneur Life, every Saturday from 10:30 to 12:30. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durzik, we thank you for making us a small part of your Saturday. We're coming back next Saturday, whether you like it or not. We're coming back. We're going to have a great time. Thank you so much. You're listening to 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA, 95.7 and 99.3 FM as well. And, of course, streaming live on BeaverCountyRadio.com. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney and author Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship have been provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Tune in next Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for another edition of Your Entrepreneur Life right here on Beaver County.